Hi. Oh, hey, hey,
Hey guys!
hey. It's Lori.
It's Sarah.
And welcome back to Mindful Witchery Podcast.
Hey guys, so we just got back from a luxury drive in Lori's new car.
We did a joyride. You'll notice that the episode before this will end with the doorbell ringing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and us going out for a joyride. So we went for a joyride in Persephone, my new Cooper. So
It's beautiful.
It's exciting.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's the nicest thing I've done for myself in a long time.
You deserve it.
So, one of my only self-care routines in the winter, I guess. I'm not good about taking care of myself in the wintertime in terms of wellness and self-care. I'm bad at it. There's too many things. There's too many distractions. There's too many reasons and excuses for not to take care of myself. If you think about it, what's weird is you start to get cold in October, which is Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, it's Halloween. I have to eat candy.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
Oh, it's November. It's Thanksgiving. I'm obligated to eat 10 pounds of turkey.
I'll go on that diet later.
December. Oh my gosh, it's candy. January's
Indulge.
New Year's,
Yeah.
Indulge. February's Valentine's Day.
Mm-hmm.
And then we move into March and we have no more excuses.
I mean, you could celebrate on President's Day if you want,
Yeah.
but not as important.
No, it's not. It's crazy. I mean, in the wintertime, especially with this COVID thing going on, I personally know that I've not taken care of myself very well. I mean, I really need to sit back and think, I need to start back into my wellness routine. I mean, I do my meditation, which seems to be fine. But
which is so perfect in the winter.
Yeah.
You can just snuggle up, wrap yourself up in a blanket.
But it's still, I feel like I eat better in the spring and summer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more active in the spring and summer, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all are. It's too cold to go outside and do cool things.
In New England. We live in New England, by the way, if you didn't know. It's tough.
And I'm not a snow sport person. I'm not like a snowshoe skier.
Not my thing.
No, I'm not. No, I don't see any point in that.
I've tried. I was going to say I ski. I don't ski. My husband and his family skis. And I tried it once, and I did like it. But I'll go like 2 times down the hill, and I'd rather be by the fireplace. That's my self-care.
Drinking some
near
hot
the
cocoa.
Fire,
Yeah.
hot cocoa, maybe a glass of wine.
Yeah.
That sounds good. But in the winter, it's easy to break habits.
Mm-hmm.
It's because there's less. It's almost like you have more idle time.
Right.
And in the summer, we usually, especially like the beginning of the year, people usually do their New Year's resolutions and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the summer, you have the spring, you set all these goals, and it's so much easier to take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And when winter hits, all the habits, all those healthy habits that
all those parameters that you set.
All those parameters that you set when winter happens, goes right out the window.
It really does.
They're
and
really
I admire people who can go through the entire year, all 4 seasons, and continue that routine, because I just have not found a way to do it.
It's tough.
It's
really tough.
And I admit, self-care to me is different than self-care to you. Self-care to the person walking down the street right now. It's self-care is different for everybody. And unfortunately, there's so much involved with self-care and so much that comes into play with self-care that there are a lot of people out there waiting to take advantage of people who are kind of loosey-goosey with their self-care.
I agree. Because it is so complicated. And it kind of, I still want to talk about that, but also yours type of self-care doesn't involve winter. And for some people it does, right? Like skiing, that's their exercise. But for us witches, Lori and I, we like the sunshine.
Yes.
We like being outside, not cold. Like that's where we feel most ourselves in the fall. And
It's when I'm cold, I kind of tend to be dormant.
Yes. Yeah. We're the hermit.
Yeah, we're the hermits. We're the
hermitize.
dormant. I mean, and then given the COVID situation, it really hasn't helped matters really with my whole dormancy thing.
Same. I'm gotten worse.
Yeah, it's like I'm this little pitiful wilted flower who needs to bloom, and I bloom in the spring and the summer, and then the rest of the time I'm kind of dormant.
I definitely feel it's affected, like not being able to do my type of self-care has definitely affected my confidence.
Sure.
And all the work, all the habits I formed of being more social
And it's more than just physical, and you're alluding to that is it's more than physical. I mean, there is a spiritual side and a psychological side to self-care that is super important. And sometimes when we let that fall, we get into this like spiritual void.
Yes.
Kind of.
Yes.
Where we don't really know where we're falling. We're kind of marginalized in a way, and just the world kind of spins out of control when you don't have your spiritual foundation. Yeah. And I mean, meditation does that for me.
Yes.
I'm very fortunate that meditation helps me with that. Meditation is the thing that keeps me grounded.
Yeah. Same, but for me, it's not always easy to start.
Right.
And that's one of the habits being a meditation instructor, I will be the first one to say I've definitely fallen out of the habits that I form when it's nicer out, because I prefer to meditate outside.
Sure, yeah.
You won't be seeing me sitting in a snowbank meditating under my blanket. It's just not going to happen.
It has to be done outside, and sometimes it has to be done inside, and sometimes that's really hard in the wintertime.
Especially when your family's home now, because COVID and routines are thrown off.
Kids and cats and dogs and whatnot.
And that's when it's easy. Go back to what you were saying. That's when it's easy for people to be taken advantage of, especially in the wellness world.
We had a whole a title for this. We talked about this yesterday. Yes, we were talking about this.
This episode is a long time in the making, but we had a great conversation yesterday, and the Seedy wellness underworld, the seedy world of the wellness world,
and it's there, folks. There's a seedy underbelly to everything,
and I hate to say it. Too, because we're part of it.
We're part of the wellness world. And that's the thing that's the dichotomy of this, is that we're part of the wellness world. And in what we're getting ready to talk about and getting ready to say and our opinions that we're giving, we're not condemning the entire wellness world.
Absolutely
We're
not.
condemning a small bad apple batch that has kind of contaminated our wellness world. And those are people who take advantage of people who are in spiritual, physical, mental voids.
And this is consciously and unconsciously.
Exactly.
And that's the tricky part. People who don't understand the power that they can hold over people and don't realize they're actually hurting people and manipulating people.
And the scary people are the people who do realize
who know exactly what they're doing.
Cult leaders. I was watching a show about cults on, I think it was Netflix. And it was talking about a lot of cults, like the Jonestown cult, and how the cult leaders they were talking about, number one, knew exactly what they were doing.
Yes.
They were conscious of it. And number two, they were choosing people who were at a place in their lives that was a crossroads. Whether it was a spiritual issue, whether it was a mental issue, whether it was a physical issue, whether it was, a person feeling like they're out of sorts.
Yeah.
Whether, no matter what, in what capacity. They knew that. And somehow managed to get these people to believe that they were the end of their problem. They were the solution. They were the cure.
Pill.
And when you are, I've been in spiritual voids before where you just don't know quite where you belong. And nothing is better than having somebody tell you where to go.
Yeah,
just
showing up and being let me help you.
Yeah, it's a flow chart.
Are
you feeling this way? Then you go to A. If you're feeling this way, then you go to B.
Yeah, let me help you.
Yes.
And it makes you feel, part of our human condition is wanting to feel seen and wanting to feel heard and wanted. And unfortunately with cult leaders, that's how they get you. And if you're in a vulnerable place, and usually a lot of people too who fall into these groups have had some type of trauma, mentally, spiritually,
that have knocked them off of their balance,
their perception of the world. And it happens more often than I think a lot of people are comfortable talking about. We're all capable of falling into cults.
Yes. If you think it's not going to happen to you, folks, it happens to a lot of people that you would never think.
And it's, our brains really are wired to connect with people. And the people, unfortunately, and Lori and I will talk about this, we never really got into a cult or anything, but
I've been in places where I could have been.
Exactly. I've definitely been in places in mindsets. And especially people who have various forms of mental illness and stuff, it's easy to a point to be taken advantage of when you're in so much pain. And I've definitely fallen into that in people that I've followed kind of back talking about it to the wellness world. being manipulated, whether it was the intention of the person I was following or person that was giving me advice or not. But taking the step back now that I've kind of got out of it, they were totally manipulating me for their own self-worth.
It's so subtle.
Very subtle.
So subtle and covert. Is that what the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, I think so.
That you don't see it when you're in it. Like the subliminal piece of it, the gentleness of it, the slow process of it.
Grooming.
You don't see it until grooming. You don't see it until you're out.
You don't see it. Whether, like I said again, whether that's intentional or whether it's not. Because I do feel like most people do have good intentions. And when we talk about wellness world too, let's clarify that. So people who are in, even meditation instructors, I hate to say it, yoga instructors,
Reiki.
We're talking about people who practice Reiki, reflexology, massage therapists even. I don't want to call them pseudoscience. Oh my god, I can't.
It's hard to say.
Pseudoscience.
Pseudoscience.
I know there's a lot of negativity, and I'm sure I'm going to ruffle some feathers with what we're talking about today, but there's no scientific basis behind a lot of these things. Massage, yes, there are
absolutely.
things, but the things that are attached to those things, it can be very dangerous. So those are kind of the things that we're talking about when we're talking about this.
There are people within the wellness world who have a God complex.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't include myself in that. I don't include you in that. And I don't include a lot of the people that we associate with that, because we are in it for the right reasons. Our intent is to allow what we know, to teach you what we know, for you to be able to help yourself to feel better, whether it's physically, emotionally. We are in it for that particular intention. And there are people, unfortunately, in the wellness world who are into it because they need the self-esteem boost, because they need the ego boost, because they lack the control.
Yes.
And
they lack the control in their own lives, and that's what they were taught.
I guess the biggest thing for me is I just want people who are seeking self-care to not only understand that there's a lot of different forms of self-care, and there's a lot of perception of what self-care is, but also to understand that you really need to get to know the person that you're seeking the self-care from, whether it's your therapist, whether it's your Reiki master, whether it is your,
the person you're watching on
the
YouTube,
yoga instructor, the
people who claim to be dietitians, holistic dietitians, and they've never went to school for it in their lives. Yeah.
And unfortunately, it is the wellness community, and in terms of our qualifications, it's very loosey-goosey.
Very, and I'm so glad you brought that up. I wanted to talk about that. I don't think a lot of the general public is aware that people who claim to be life coaches, people who claim to be Reiki practitioners, and even massage therapists, and I don't want to throw my own profession under the bus, but unfortunately, the qualifications of such are not as regulated as I feel like they should be.
And there's steps to take. If you're a responsible, like I'm a Reiki master, and you are too.
Same.
So if you're a responsible person who is doing Reiki as a therapeutic outlet for people, you really have a responsibility. And if you're not doing this, I'm saying this to you.
Yeah.
If those of you who are Reiki therapists, if you're out there and you're not doing this, you owe it to yourself to spend some time with your clients with a written statement telling them what Reiki is,
the facts,
and what it is not.
Yep.
You are not a counselor.
Yep.
You are not a massage therapist.
No. God, no.
You are not a doctor.
You're not allowed to touch them, by the way, unless you have... I know there are workarounds. Oh my God, Lori, I think I'm going to get a lot of hate for this. So there's a workaround that you can become an ordained minister.
Yep.
So you can legally touch the person. If that person doesn't hold that, they should not be touching you. If they are not a massage therapist, they should not be touching you. And even the workaround with the ordained minister, I personally am one.
Myself too.
I'm trying to word this carefully. I think it's wrong. Don't hate me. I think it's wrong. I don't know how you feel about it.
And there are places that if you even try to get insurance with the International Reiki Association, you have to be a massage therapist or an ordained minister. Yeah. You cannot get insured if you're not one of those.
Unless you are an ordained minister, But there should be limitations to that.
And that's the easiest thing in the world. You pay $24.95.
Oh, it was easy.
And you
I
got
went
it.
and did it.
Yeah,
sure,
I did.
Why
I
not?
have a certificate in my folder.
But you should not be, touching somebody's muscles. You should not be massaging their hands. Mm-hmm. No, like you could seriously hurt somebody if you don't know what you're doing. You might have the best intentions. So falling back on that, your intentions might be there. You might be really great Reiki practitioner, but it's a disservice to yourself and it's a disservice to your client and can be extremely dangerous if you do not give them the straight facts. And this leaves out your religion should not be part of this. Ever. And I know a lot of practitioners and practitioners I've heard of incorporate their religion into Reiki and talk about...
In a lot of different ways.
Yeah. Talk about spirituality and stuff. And I personally feel that that's wrong. I don't think that those beliefs are wrong. Don't get me wrong.
But incorporating it into your practice is not the correct way to deliver a service.
No. Especially if you want it to be taken seriously, which is the huge issue.
And that's why I started doing that with the sign-in sheet. Is we go over the sheet and I can even include a link to it. It's pretty generic.
Yeah.
And it basically talks about what Reiki is and what it isn't. And then the client acknowledging through their signature that they understand.
Yeah.
That's what I do. I have them sign that. And I think not only does it create a situation where we know where we stand, but also it gives me a little more credibility.
Most definitely. I agree.
And I think that you have to, because you can't, I don't know that you can even attempt to have the right intention if you also have a God complex. I mean, there are, the words like I am the catalyst. I am the
conduit.
I'm the conduit. I'm the healer. Those kind of words are very dangerous.
Yes.
And because it creates a situation where the person sees you as more than you are.
Divine. On this pedestal.
The conduit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We're not healers.
No, and I put that out on, not to interrupt, but I put that on Instagram, what people felt about that. The whole healers thing, I asked, do you call yourself a healer if you're a wellness practitioner, or do you see somebody who calls himself a healer? And I got some really good responses. Some were like, yes, because when I hear healer, this is what I think. And I'm like, that makes sense. But other people were like, absolutely not. And so I'd be curious, if you call yourself a healer, I'd love to know why. And I don't want to, put it down, but I don't think it's right. Same reason, it's like it almost puts you up. The interpretation of it for me is it's putting you above the person you're working with, and that is not okay.
And even if your intentions are good, it sets you up for failure.
Most definitely.
It absolutely sets you up in the parameters of failure because you're not healing anyone.
There's a religious association to it, a very Christian religious association to it. When I hear healer, and most people in the West they hear healer, they hear, oh my God, you must be magical.
Divine.
You must be divine. And not everybody, not at all. I honestly, talking about personal experiences, for a short time, I called myself a healer.
Oh, me too.
I did not know any better.
Because that's what I was told to call myself.
That was what I was told to call myself. I was told to call myself a conduit for energy and healing, and not my jam. I took a step back and realized how dangerous that was, and took a step back and saw how much power I had over the people that I was trying to be to help make their lives better. And talking about Reiki, it's why I don't do Reiki anymore. I don't think I'm qualified to be a Reiki practitioner, even though I understand it. I understand what it's for. I'm a massage therapist, so I can legally touch people. I do Reiki when I do massages if somebody asks for it, but I stopped because there is this gap of understanding between your patient and yourself that is hard for the patient to understand.
And you have to communicate that. You have to be able to either verbally or in writing communicate that in a solid way to the person that you're practicing on. It has to be done, because there are people who blur the lines consistently, and sometimes it's not their fault.
No, it's not their fault. Sometimes it's not their fault.
It's just they see you because they've heard that Reiki is healing. They've heard that, you
it's
know,
like
these
magic.
things. It's magic.
Yeah, it's magic.
And it is. I mean, it truly is. When you do Reiki on a person and you really feel and you exchange energy with each other, it is a very moving and wonderful experience. And it gives, I love Reiki because I get just as much from it as the person I'm practicing on.
Mm-hmm.
And I come out of there feeling more energy than I felt before they came in. You don't take on their negative energy.
No.
So it's not, I know I've had people say to me, aren't you tired after you do it?
I don't want you to take on my stuff. I'm like, I'm not.
Not taking on your stuff.
No.
And people will say stuff like, aren't you tired when you're done with Reiki? No, absolutely not. If Reiki is done the correct way, you feel more energy than you did before the client came in.
If I have a question. So if somebody came to you and was just like, explain Reiki to me in a couple sentences, what would you say to them?
That's a really hard one. That's a tough one to do.
Yeah.
The thing that I think I do most is I talk about how, you know, Reiki is a sharing of energy, the universe to you. And we're using the word conduit, which is kind of weird. Yeah. But it's an exchange of energy from the universe to you. I really don't even include myself in it.
Yeah. Yep.
It's because I'm not the conduit. I'm not the person bringing the energy to them. Mm-hmm. If anything, what I'm doing is giving them a tool to use. It is a tool, and that's what I always say about Reiki. Reiki is a tool.
It's a tool. Yeah.
Yes, and I think that's how you have to look at it. And if you look at it as some divine thing, it's not of the divine. It's science.
Yeah.
It's science.
People can make it that way, but it's not. Yeah, right.
Energy is everything in the world, everything in the universe has energy. And all you're doing is taking what you have, taking that energy that you have, whether it's the energy of one of your chakras being out of line, whether it's needing energy for a stressful time in your life, any of those things. I don't even go into the medical angle because I'm not even going to go there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But whatever you leave with, and I always tell people this too as a practitioner, whatever you leave the room with is what the universe and the energy in the universe meant for you to have. Mm-hmm. So if you leave just feeling more relaxed,
awesome.
Super. Yeah. If you leave feeling like you can go to that job interview and ace it, then that's cool too. If you feel like it helps you with your addiction, awesome. But you're going to leave with whatever the universe wants you to leave with.
The way I describe it to people, it's, I'm holding space for you.
Yes.
That's all I say.
Mm-hmm.
I'm holding space for you. And I'm being in this space with you. And
we're in a moment.
I've said once too, it's like, I'm controlling energy in this room, which sounds kind of like, woo, like, like I'm controlling everything. But what I mean by that is I'm holding space for you, and I'm holding space for us, because it's communication that doesn't need words. Mm-hmm. And, can I tell a story?
Sure.
A great story. And why I don't do Reiki anymore. Long story short, for a few years, I worked with people, and I was taught that a part of Reiki was reading people, kind of like a psychic reads people. Mm-hmm. And I'm very intuitive, and this is a regret I have, actually. And I wanted to say this. I don't think I've talked about this. I've talked about it with Lori, but that people come to see me and they would want me to tell them things, read them, tell them. Like, it's like I was reading their energy where I can, like, see stuff. Mm-hmm. And wasn't I? It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Because me doing that could be really harmful.
And that's not Reiki.
And that's not Reiki. And I think that I have this guilt in me that I offered this service to people and they expected me to be able to read them or read their emotions, and which to a certain extent maybe I was. Mm-hmm. Maybe I was seeing stuff.
You can read energy from chakras.
You totally
you absolutely can.
And I'm not a disbeliever, because I've had personal experiences where that do confirm that it's possible, that you can connect with somebody so deeply that you can see the same colors together and stuff like that. I'm not discounting it at all, but there is harm that can be done by telling people what you see and telling them, like, I didn't do this, but being like, oh, did you have trauma as a kid? Mm-hmm. Or like, oh, I'm seeing you being abused, or like, oh, like, you should go get your knee checked out.
Oh, and how that creates codependence.
Yes.
Yes.
It creates this codependence. And I have not gone that far, but I definitely have been put in positions where I thought that's what I was supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And I regret being manipulated in that way, or I regret doing it. I was a shamanic practitioner for a tiny bit, and which is a little more involved than Reiki. And I don't regret it, but I also regret not knowing enough about it. And it hurts me. It's hard to talk about because it's like a fault within myself. And if people are listening to this that have come and see me, I don't regret working with you at all. I thought it was a wonderful experience, and I'm glad I helped the people that I could help. But reason why I don't do it anymore is because I saw how much power I could have over people and how much codependence with some of the people I was working on became on me to tell them what they need to do. And I always felt uncomfortable doing it.
And watching somebody walk out of your room, walking out of your massage room, feeling better. Is a wonderful feeling. But it's not a wonderful feeling if you feel like your intent was off.
Yeah.
But if you feel like your intent was there and they leave the room feeling better about themselves, that's the best feeling in the world. Honestly, I love that feeling so much.
I do too.
It's just a beautiful experience.
But it can become addicting. And I think that's when practitioners...
When good practitioners go bad.
Yeah. And do you think it's a choice that we all have to make as practitioners?
Sure.
Because we are in this position of, you're working, like massage, for example, you are naked on the table. There's a certain amount of trust that you have in me. And I take that so seriously. But when that person's leaving the office feeling good, being like, oh my God, like I've never felt this great in my life. I almost need to make that choice, being like, this is not going to your head. You are not
exactly.
God.
I think you have to make a choice. You do.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to develop a God complex. And I mean, going back to what you were saying, I get that a lot too. Like when I do Reiki on others, I'm not a psychic. I mean, I consider myself to be pretty empathic, but I'm not a psychic.
Yeah.
And to ask me to, what's going to happen or anything like that. I mean, even when I read tarot, it becomes a thing where I consider myself to be ultra sensitive, empathic, but I'm not a psychic. These things come to me in the same way they would come to anybody who would be reading tarot cards. It's just that I happen to have been reading tarot cards for a long time. Yeah. And
do you think that's where the misconception lies with tarot? Like, I don't think. Like, do you think, like, the general public is aware? I think what am I trying to say? Like, there's this association that people who are into psychics or anything like that, they almost see people who read cards a certain way because so many people almost, like, display themselves that way. Or, like,
sure.
I don't think people fully understand what a lot of the things are. Like, tarot, Reiki. Our culture sees them a certain way, so that's what they think it is. And... Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, not to interrupt.
Throwing Ouija boards right on in on that, and oracle cards and everything else. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a certain conception that goes along with that you're going to leave that room knowing your future.
Yeah, and it's the practitioner's responsibility to dispel that, and a lot don't. A lot don't.
I really take it, when I decided I wanted to do Reiki, and I wanted to be a Reiki master and a Reiki teacher, I took that very seriously. I mean, it was something that I said to me, I've been given the honor of being able to do this. And I want to make sure that all of my clients understand that I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. I'm just here in this space sharing energy with you and hoping that and focusing on the areas that make you feel like you're feeling better. Yeah. And I think you need to be aware of that too. I know there's Reiki practitioners who don't do like a consultation before. I always do a consultation before. Like, is there anything, because I'm not a psychic and I'm not trying to impress you with my psychicness. Yeah. I want to know what's bothering you. I want to know, where are you feeling? What are you feeling? Are you feeling like you're going to a job interview and you're not really able to say articulately what you want to say, or is that a fear of yours? Well, then we're going to work up here on this throat chakra.
Yeah.
Are you feeling like you don't understand how you're connected to, you don't understand your connection to family or certain things in your life? Then we're going to work on the crown chakra. I want to know these things. I don't want to guess. I'm not playing any guessing games.
Yeah, and you don't have to continue talking about it, right?
No.
Like, again, you're not a therapist.
Right.
And I don't, do you think people are aware of that? I guess that's the question I'll put out there. Like, are people aware about Reiki practitioners, massage therapists and stuff, and their lack of regulation?
Well, and that's the thing, and we're not regulated, so that's the other thing. My Reiki is different from the Reiki that the person does down the street. It's different from the Reiki that's done out on Route 9 or whatever. It's all different because we're not regulated.
No, and that is a big one. And this is where it's going to piss people off. I personally think Reiki practitioners need to be licensed.
Yes.
And need to be regulated.
I agree, and that's coming in.
If I'm going to lose some friends over this, I am so sorry. But that's just what I feel, because I think it puts a disservice on the people who are really serious about it.
And it increases, if you want to talk about marketability and credibility, having a degree on your wall or having a certificate on your wall is a lot more credible than not. So for me, I think it is a little selfish on my part, because I think it makes me more marketable if I have a certificate on my wall that says I went to this school and I learned how to do this.
Yeah.
Rather than I took an internet course. I mean, I'm really going to piss people off with this. And I don't mean to, because I know some very, very nice people who do Reiki and who are super at it, who got their degree who got their certification online.
Yep.
And they're wonderful at it.
Yeah.
So I'm not here to say that. But I am here to say that I agree with you on this. And I think that all of these wonderful people who have this as their background need to consider that it would make them more credible.
Yeah, and to consider your clients just as much. Like, if this is something you really want to do, wouldn't you want to put in the time to make it so people have a deeper understanding of what your profession is? And Reiki not having more clarification almost discredits people who are in professions where you need a license. Acupuncture, massage therapy for one. Reiki, in a way, I'm going to piss people off, Lori, makes massage therapists look bad.
I think so too.
I can say that.
For sure.
I can say that because I am one. And I have been. Where people think it's one and the same.
And it's not. You shouldn't even be able to call Reiki massage, really. I don't think. Calling it Reiki massage is a misnomer.
No. Reflexology falls into that category too.
I know people who are doing reflexology on people who have no business doing reflexology because they have no knowledge. They've read a book. They read a book.
I'm getting so angry right now.
I'm just thinking about it. I'm
starting to cry.
I just don't want anybody to. I don't want anybody to be taken advantage of. And particularly, I don't want people being taken advantage of or feeling taken advantage of under my care.
No, because people are getting hurt. And again, I feel like I have to keep saying this, but this isn't everybody.
This is the bad apple bunch that we're talking about. This isn't everybody.
But it's becoming so much more apparent lately for me, and I know for you, all these things getting uncovered, and I do not mind being the person to talk about it, to uncover it, because it's hurting people. And it's giving a bad name to things that are really, really helpful. Massage too, I worked my ass off. I went to massage school. Like, I did a year course. And
that stuff's not free either.
No, I paid a lot of money.
Yeah.
I am, like, how many years later? 7 years later, the amount of money I put in, I'm still paying off. I sacrificed a lot to go to massage school. And it's daunting physically, mentally.
Sure. Physically, it is just amazing what you go through physically through massage therapy
I didn't
school.
Just decide one day I want to start doing massage and, like, pay a couple $100s and be like, okay. No, like, I did a lot, and the people that I know that are still massage therapists work their asses off to make you feel good. And so when there's people out there, acting as massage therapists, whether they call themselves that or not, it's easy to find loopholes.
Yes.
And every state is different, by the way. With massage, I can only really speak for massage. Every state's different. in licensing and training, and a lot of clients have never asked to see any of my qualifications. And I think that's really scary.
Mm-hmm.
I find that scary because people expect that you know what you're doing.
They put a lot of trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially if you're touching somebody's body, like, oh, they must be.
Yeah, obviously they must be some type of therapist.
Yeah, they must be. No. And I tell people that when they start telling me all their issues, I have people be like, listen, I'm not a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
There's some great therapists out there.
Here's a card for a great therapist.
Here's a card.
It is hard. It's so hard, and it's painful for people who are doing their best.
Yeah.
And trying to make an honest situation, just like with crystal therapy. We'll go to crystal therapy and talk about, I know people who practice crystal therapy who are licensed gemologists.
That's so cool.
And that is how it should be, and I know people who may not be a licensed gemologist, but they know a lot, that they bring the gemology aspect of it into their practice.
Yeah.
And that not only makes it more credible because it ties together, and it ties together perfectly.
Yep.
But not only does it do that, but it gives you the ability to really educate.
A more holistic.
A more holistic approach.
Foundational approach.
Yeah. And so there's all those things out there, all those practices. There's always a way to tie in science to those practices. And I don't know. It really upsets me to think that there are people out there who are taking advantage of people, nice, good people who are coming to you for help.
Because they're in pain. And
yes.
A lot of people go to more new age related wellness things because it's their last resort. I know that's what it was like for me, spending years in the Western healthcare industry.
Here's a pill.
Here's a pill.
Here's a shot.
Let me put you away. Let me do all this stuff. Oh, you have this. Oh, you have that. And I get it. It burns you out. It's traumatic. That's my trauma, is the healthcare industry. Yeah. And so when I started looking more into alternative therapies, I soaked it up. I wanted all this to be real because my brain was so traumatized. I just wanted all these new ways of thinking. A good example here is law of attraction, power of positive thinking, herbs, all that. I soaked it all in.
Vision boards,
all that manifestation. I'm like, oh my God, there's this way where I can, I had chronic depression. My thinking was not fully there. It wasn't fully straight. And all of a sudden, what? Law of attraction? I can just think positively.
And it'll happen.
And all this stuff will happen and manifest.
I will visualize it and it will happen.
And I'm not discrediting it because I think
it's a part. I think you have to be able to visualize what you want, and then you take the action.
Yes,
to make it happen. I think sometimes I'm not trying to interrupt you, but sometimes I think that some of this is half truth.
Yeah, there's two ends to the
spectrum. It's hard to really interpret what's true and what's not. But I think that one of the things you have to be really careful about is picking. If you're going to the holistic arena, you have to pick carefully.
Yeah.
And there's so much out there. I mean, from herbalism to shamanism.
Yeah.
And everything in between. You have to be careful as you're shopping around for what you're looking for. And know that this isn't to cure you. It's to help you in your journey to facilitate getting well and having wellness.
You worded it
and
so well.
I don't think people think that. They think people are so conditioned to Western medicine.
It doesn't work that way. It doesn't. Eastern medicine, I'll just call it alternative medicine, does not work in the same framework.
It does not.
That Western medicine does. And I think I think that gap can be bridged when you can put both together.
Yes.
Right?
Just choose carefully, I guess, is
take everything with a grain of salt. Learn.
And if it helps, if it helps
awesome.
you, then super. Then that means you went the right route. You might go some routes in holistic medicine where you're not, I'm not a huge fan of shadow work. I think it's too intense and it bothers me.
Yeah.
But some people go into shadow work and they come out new people.
Yep.
I mean, but it's not healing them. I think that's the point, that they're healing.
Yes.
Healing is
Yeah.
very concrete. What holistic medicine gives you is an avenue to support you taking the journey to healing.
Yeah. There's no end point.
No,
by the way.
there's no end point.
And I think that's a misconception. That's a myth about.
That's the Western medicine condition.
Yes, that these alternative medicines, there's an end.
It's not a pill.
No, it's a tool on your journey.
It's a tool on your journey. It's exactly what it is.
And there's no end, by the way, especially with shadow work, which I've done,
Mm-hmm.
and it helped me. But on the flip side, realizing that it gave me this almost like boat to ride in,
Mm-hmm.
as I was learning to navigate myself and who I was, and to get past trauma. It helped me. Same thing with massage, same thing with Reiki. It didn't heal me. It helped me.
Mm-hmm. It was it's not a conduit. It's a facilitator.
It's a facilitator.
Yeah.
Would I say it was the one thing? No, not at all. I'm definitely that person at this point in my life. If you asked me 10 years ago, I've been like alternative medicine all the way, because I hated Western medicine so much. But I sit in the middle now.
I think you have to. There has to be an
it's
alliance.
a disservice to yourself.
Yes, there has to be an alliance. I mean, I know there's people who... I think there's certain points in people's lives and in their mortality that cause them to seek alternative medicine and completely forget about Western medicine.
Yeah. Because of the trauma.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's just, you get to a point where you're just, I'm done with this.
I'm done.
But just keeping in mind that Western medicine working with alternative medicine is such a great way to go, because the alternative medicine is giving you the strength and the energy for the journey, and it's not the healing point.
No. Oh, I like how you were saying that. Alternative medicine gives you the strength and energy for the journey. Western medicine is... Oh, there's a word. Oh my God. It's so perfect. Western medicine kind of acts more as this like box for the journey. I don't know if that makes sense.
It's like the vehicle.
Yeah, it's like the vehicle.
Yeah.
And both are so beautiful together, and it's tricky too. Like, I'm not saying it's like the end all whatever, but nothing's black and white, even in medicine. And I hate to say it.
Please be aware of that, folks. That's so important.
Please be aware.
And we're, in this, I just want to say to all my fellow Reiki practitioners out there, and all of my alternative medicine practitioner friends out there, and all of my wellness practitioners, and all of my holistic therapy practitioner friends out there, we are not at all by any means trying to insult, alienate anyone. What we're speaking of here are the bad apples in the bunch. And we all know, Mama always told us that one bad apple can spoil a whole bunch. And I know so many beautiful, beautiful practitioners out there of holistic therapies who do what they do to help people.
Yeah.
But there is that apple, that one bad apple that makes us all look bad.
Yeah.
And it's just, we have to fight that with every step we take to dispel the myths. And that's what I feel like we've taken that as our mission almost, is to dispel the myths and talk about what things are and what they aren't.
And what they are. And also taking what we say with a grain of salt.
Absolutely.
Hell, too, because we can only talk on our own experiences and our own knowledge and our education, which is limited. Just like everybody else has limited knowledge on things. So I think what I want to say, like especially with like the bad apples of the bunch, is to be aware of who you surround yourself by and be aware of your journey the best you can, and just, kind of tying this back to witchery related things too. Everything has this intent behind it, and your intention too may not be right. Like your intention too at that point in time may feel right,
but it morphs into something that isn't.
Into something else. And I think I say that more towards like practitioners. Like your intention could be there, but also be aware of your power over people, and just be aware of how you're presenting what you're doing, because even though it makes sense to you, these words that you're using, knowing that the person you're trying to help may perceive those same words in a very different way.
And this is specifically, I think, directed at beginning practitioners.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to get to make a formulaic way of doing things. I know when I first learned to do Reiki, I did it by the book. The book I was given by the person who gave it to me. And as I practiced and I honed my practice, I started to do things with a different intent. And that meant that my way of doing things changed and it morphed. And I think that's the same thing with anything. I mean, you learn how to ride a bike, you're riding a bike with two hands on the handlebars. And by the time you're good at it, you're using one handlebar.
Yeah, and then you can kind of learn more.
Yeah, exactly.
Learn more about it.
So that's the thing. I mean, with all these practices, you have so much to choose from, and that's a beautiful thing. But the underside of that is that there are people out there who will want to take advantage of your kindness, your trust, and just I think we're just saying just to be aware of that.
Yeah, and like, how do we explain that more? Like, if I'm trying to talk more about it without talking more about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is tricky to talk about because I know that I don't want to do it in such a general way. And I also don't want to be like, science is everything. It has a lot to do with it.
Because there is magic in the world.
Because there is magic in the world. But when I say magic, with my husband, that's a great example. I say something like magic, he's going to interpret something totally different than how I mean it. When I say magic, I think about my connection to things.
You are magic with a K, girlfriend.
I am magic with a K.
That's the way I always tell my husband. I'm like, oh no, I'm talking about magic with a K.
Oh yeah, no, my magic's different. And other people, so like being a witch, right? And people ask me about casting spells and stuff. I'm like, I don't really. I'm not discrediting it with anybody else, but I think casting spells is more of a way to focus on the things you want. Like you're casting intentions.
Yes.
And I think when the way witches have been portrayed for many years, when I'm like, oh, I'm going to go cast a spell, people think I'm like out there like...
You're going to give somebody a wart.
Yeah. Or like I have a stick and waving around and like smoke's coming out. Not so much. Maybe for other witches, if you believe in that type of magic and stuff, all I really ask is to know your influence on other people. And that a word to you may not mean a word to somebody else. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It's a lot. This is a lot. This is
kind of a heavy episode, but it's kind of we covered a lot of ground, Sarah, because it's, in the end, your decisions are your own. But just be aware that your decisions don't just affect you, I guess is what we're saying.
Yeah. And we talked about that in another episode about the
cause and effect.
Cause and effect and how religion plays a huge role in why people perceive things a certain way.
Yes.
Especially in the wellness world. There's a lot of people, I guess I'll end with this, is I feel like a lot of people who have gotten very burnt out by religious organizations, Christianity is the big one that I've come across with clients, that when they get out of that religion, they need to fill that need with something else.
Yes.
And a lot of people have, in my experience, turned to more Western, more alternative practices, like joining yoga groups.
Because it's the opposite.
I don't know why we completely left yoga out of this.
Yeah, why did we leave yoga out?
I don't know, because that's a big one too. We'll get somebody else on.
Yeah, we'll get a guest yoga instructor to talk about that one.
And they join these like new age groups and stuff because religion, especially Christianity, often has that group vibe where somebody's in charge and people, that becomes a habit for them. So when they get out of that and they try to fill that need with something else, they try to approach it in the same way, very similar to how people who get out of Western medicine try to make alternative medicine. They try to approach it the same way, and it's two different entities. So I just want people to be aware of that. Very similar to why people get into cults really easily is because they're trying to fill a need to make their lives easier. Because
we tend to go the polar opposite.
And life's hard. Yep. Life's really hard. Life is difficult.
Life's a bitch sometimes. Absolutely.
And, I wish there was a magic spell where I could just be like, twitch my nose and have a mansion and have all this money, but to also know that's not reality.
Intent plus action. That's the way we get the things that we need is intent plus action.
Yeah.
And I was always told it's all about intent. It's all about intent. Well, I could sit here all day long and intend to have $1 million show up in my mailbox, but it's not going to happen unless I do something to make it happen. So,
that's magical thinking.
That's magical thinking with a K.
Yep. Actually, magical thinking is a a psychiatric term. It basically means it's a cognitive bias where people believe that their thoughts create actions in the world around them. So I'm going to think positively. I'm going to manifest $1 million. I'm going to manifest $1 million. And they feel like because they think that, they control the world around them. And
when it doesn't happen, you set yourself up for failure.
And you set yourself up for failure, and how dangerous that is. This is going to be a whole nother episode. Yeah. How dangerous that is to people who have mental illness, OCD, anxiety disorder, because magical thinking, it's called thought action fusion, is a symptom of OCD where you become obsessive about it. And almost this popularizing of it in our culture now, this power manifestation, law of attraction stuff, it is really harmful to people who have OCD. I believe, I don't have the data behind that.
You can make all the vision boards you want to.
Yeah.
But if you don't go out there and do something to make it happen, it ain't going to happen, people. It's just that, that's not me being a pessimist. That's me being a realist.
I wish it was. I wish that was true. I really wish. And I also have been in a place where I thought it was. And I don't want to discredit anybody either. Like, if that's something you believe, then like, awesome. If it works for you, if you doesn't harm you.
Or anybody else.
Awesome. But I know for me, in my experience, I'm recovering from thinking that way because I have OCD. And that's my main symptom, is this thought action fusion where I think. And it became worse because I was subscribed to this power of positive thinking type of mentality, and it backed up these obsessive thoughts that I had. And that's my own personal experience. But
and life is balance.
Life is
balance. And that's the whole thing, is that not one thing, there's no one thing that's going to be the answer. It's a combination of things. It's a combination of things, contexts, working together to make things happen. One thing isn't going to change the world. And I think that we want that so much. We want that bad. Secret pill.
Where we can't see anything else. And I get it. We get it. It's hard. I know, this was a heavy topic. I think that...
I feel like I need to tell a joke or something.
I know, like, I have this happy mug
in
front of me.
It's the beautiful
I'll take a picture
face.
and I'll put it up.
It's the beautiful smiley face. Yeah, you need to look at the smiley face mug before you listen to this.
I'll put it up on Instagram. I'm so happy we talked about it, though. I think there's so much more to cover.
We're not trying to be Debbie Downers.
No.
It's just because everybody has that spark in them, the thing that propels them forward.
Yeah.
And if that, in the balance of your life, in the balance of everything else, moves you forward, then by all means, you do you.
Yeah.
We're not saying anything is bad or good in any way. We're just saying it's there.
Yep.
And thank you so much for listening to us. Like I said, Sarah's going to put up a picture of the smiley face mug because you're going to need it before you listen to this.
You're going to need it, but we hope we helped. If you guys have any questions or like any comments, really, like I know we covered a lot, and even if you disagree with us, we could still have a conversation
even if you're a Reiki master out there and you want to talk about
and you have a different perception.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
You tell us, because
I'd love to hear it.
We learn from everybody. So just contact us and let us know what you're thinking.
Yeah, and if you're gonna try to argue with us,
just don't curse at us.
Maybe rethink yourself. We're willing to have a conversation, but if you're gonna attack us because of our beliefs, like, don't even bother. I guess that's all I have to
that's
say.
it. Yeah.
Do you have any like fun recommendations?
Fun? Gosh, it's hard for me to think fun now that I'm sitting here thinking about all these awful things in the world. But you know what? I don't have a recommendation right now. I'm going to not recommend anything this time. I'm going to recommend that I'm not going to recommend anything this time.
I've got nothing for you.
Got nothing for you.
Go and watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
There you go. Yeah.
That's what I've been doing to make me happy. And sometimes it's the little things.
At least you've been watching Buffy. I've been watching iCarly.
Oh my God.
Okay? I don't know how many of you folks remember iCarly, but see, my kids are at the age where iCarly was a big deal for them. So we literally were sitting here yesterday evening watching episode 25 of season 2 of iCarly under a blanket together, all three of us. So that was kind of fun. But yes, I'm currently watching iCarly.
So that was like years after me. I think my husband around that time maybe watched iCarly.
It was a good show.
Yeah, that was like, I watched like all that and like Double Dare.
They didn't have Nickelodeon when I was a kid, so we're not even going to
I was a Nickelodeon kid for life. Oh my god.
Hey Arnold.
Oh, Hey Arnold, and like
Ren and Stimpy.
Kablam. What Would You Do? Dude Ranch. I never liked that one. Dude Ranch. Oh, Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Oh yeah.
That's what's wrong with me, is I grew up watching Are You Afraid of the Dark? All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye.